G'day guys, Daniel Thomas here. This video is a compilation of over 100 little challenges that can change your life. Over the past 2 years, I have interviewed over 100 guests, including life coaches, performance coaches, entrepreneurs, musicians, artists, and authors. And during our conversations, I asked each of them to offer a little challenge given their journeys and experience. I'm truly grateful to every guest who offered up a challenge, and I'd love to hear from you which one resonates with you most, if you've had a crack at any of them, or if you've learnt anything in the process. There's something to take away from each of them. Enjoy these 100 challenges that have massive potential for change.
I'm a big believer that fitness is a wonderful conduit to change. You know, fitness has been such an integral part of my journey, because it provides wonderful physical transformation, but also, and I'm not trying to get a little woo-woo here, but that mental health component, or that perspective that we have on not only ourselves, but the world that we live in, it shifts as we gain that inner confidence in ourselves and we challenge ourselves through tough workouts even, but I think it's a beautiful thing for people to begin with, is just commit to your health.
The one I'm going to pick for today has to do with output in the evening. So it's a practice, and so much has been said about morning practice, and everybody should have a morning practice, and it's true, and I do. But the evening, what we do, the 5-10 minutes before we go to sleep, is hugely important. It's what goes into our head and goes into our system, and then through the night gets processed. And I think that people really underestimate that. Not only they underestimate that, they actually, what do most of us do, 10 minutes before we go to bed? We're on social media, we're scrolling, we're consuming, and then we go to sleep, right? Instead of consuming, which we all do all day long, most of us, especially those of us who are lifelong learners, and I'm sure many in your audience, make a conscious decision that for the 10 minutes before you go to bed, you're going to output instead of input. Have a notebook next to your bed where you can write very simply 3 things you're grateful for, 3 amazing things that happened that day, 3 wins. You choose. But the idea is to put out of your head rather than put in your head and in your body before you go to bed.
If you feel like you're ready to share your story, you can find every answer that you need. I will say this, just because someone's ready to share their story doesn't mean that they have to share every single detail of it. And I think this is another reason that will hold people back too, because they feel like, well, if I did this in the past, I have to share everything, but you don't. There's ways to refine and make that story in a way that you don't have to share everything. That's like, if it's detrimental to someone else, it's going to throw, like if you had childhood trauma and it throws your parents under the bus, like you don't have to. There's certain ways that you can craft your story where you can still express yourself. You shouldn't stuff it. You still express it, but you can still protect those people that that you may not want to just throw every detail out there. So I think that journaling and meditation will help you determine what parts you should share, what parts you shouldn't share, and then just finding someone that can help you navigate that.
Intuition, that self-expression, is very healing, and it's such an act of presence that I think just being with yourself when you make art, whether that's painting or doing crocheting or whatever activity you do that's creative, you're getting out of your head and you're like focusing in the present moment to make something just for yourself often, that it's really helpful. So maybe a challenge related to going and creating something, even if you don't share it with the world, but share your process, I think is also valuable.
And I'll keep it to anxiety, but again, it can be other negative emotions as well. That if you are feeling fear, or you're feeling, when you were climbing that mountain, I'm sure there's moments that came up where, that brought some fear up for you. Fear, anxiety, self-doubt, like any of those negative feelings, I would just say, if you have the ability to pause, sit down, just get quiet for a couple of minutes and just listen
to that and see if sometimes it's telling you something, sometimes what it's actually, you think it's telling you, it's not telling you, but to be the ability to allow your body to have a sensitivity and not be overwhelmed by this and be like, okay, I can sit with this and it's not going to overwhelm me. And I can, what's going to happen is when you come out the other side, you're going to feel calm. You're going to feel peace, which is it's really interesting if you just let it run its course. And again, some people might be at work, but you can still do it probably at work. If you just have a moment, you can go to the bathroom, you can do it in the bathroom. So to be able to sit with uncomfortable emotions over and over and over again, I think can help people, not just anxiety sufferers, but anyone,
I believe that the nervous system controls all the aspects of what we do and how we think. So if we can tap into our nervous system, the more that we have the capability and the awareness to change our diet, to change our sleep hygiene, our exercise, our way that we navigate relationships. And I think the first thing in supporting the nervous system, because even as I look through the screen now, there is a bright light on my face. And this is artificial light hitting my face, my cells, and it's not necessarily supportive to my health. It's very stimulating. And so that's stimulating my nervous system. And although we might consciously not feel like I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling some sort of way, all these little things impact us. The air that we're breathing right now comes with it a certain energy that impacts our nervous system. So if I can give just one piece of advice, is to bring it as in your breath back to your awareness. Literally watching the breath slowly come in through your nose, down all the way to your belly in a slow manner, and then pushing it out through your mouth or through your nose. If we can do that more consciously all the time, we are going to have so much of a change in how we live.
My challenge would be to host people for a meal. I think the most powerful thing that I found that homes can be is a place of connection. Now, the riff on it that's coming out of this conversation is, and make it a goal to laugh as much as possible.
Awesome.
During that time when you're having somebody over for dinner. So it is getting into that improv state of mind, like and you can prep ahead of time, right, for this. Like, think about who you're inviting over. What makes them laugh? Is it telling stories? Is it hearing their stories? Are they people who like to laugh at their own stories mostly? And so you just got to pull stories out of them? Or do they like to quote funny TV shows that you have in common? Is it that you would actually jump into an improv scene or make the kids laugh or what have you? Like, so I think that would be the challenge. Host people for a good meal and make the goal laugh as much as possible.
It does not matter what your challenge is. Set up daily challenges, weekly challenges, set up challenges, because one, I think you'll be shocked by how often you do meet them. And two, if you don't meet them, I think you'll learn how to calibrate what a challenge is to yourself. Because like saying, I'm going to become the most famous musician ever, go ahead. You're allowed to challenge yourself that. But like, maybe you'll see that like, I'm going to be a musician is enough of a challenge for you. Like there is something weird when you're in your 20s and people are like, that's amazing that you just decided to go out there and be in a band. And you're like, that's not amazing because you're youthful and you just don't care. You're like, you're used to falling down and getting right back up. Now, if I fall, I might have to call a doctor and like get my back checked and take tramadol for a week. Like, it's like, so I think setting yourself up for failure, as weird as that sounds, is actually cool and fun and interesting. And I guess interesting is your own life will become more interesting, which is ultimately all you have. I mean, you share experiences with other people, you relate to other people, but most of the time you're just in this weird headspace of yourself. So yeah, I would just say little challenges are super fun, and surprise yourself.
I challenge people and myself to just keep an open mind and listen to things that you wouldn't necessarily assume are for you. Like, because there'll be things that you'll find like you say that you're like just like a hardcore rhythm and blues fan. That's your thing. And somebody sends you a link, it's like, check this out. This is a speed metal band. You're like, I don't like speed metal. It's not my thing, Listen to it anyway. Because there's something in there musically that's interesting that may have come from rhythm and blues. You don't even know it. Like, I find that, just by trying to stay open, or not limiting any genre. Because I know I've heard so many people say, I like all kinds of music, but I don't like country. I'm like, well, you've kind of cut off a giant chunk of artists who are really good. Like, there may be a lot of pop country that isn't so good. Maybe you don't like it. Fair enough, But if you checked out Willie Nelson stuff from the early 70s, like, hello, that's some of the most soulful music ever created. He's a soul singer. He just happens to be doing it in a band with a harmonica and a fiddle and whatever else, So I would, that's my challenge.
I think a big part of awareness is reflection. I think they go hand in hand. And a lot of people, especially late at night when they're by themselves, and it's easy to not reflect, because just continuing on with status quo is a much more frictionless path. Going back and reflecting, you're mining all the data, all the wisdom, all the knowledge, and it's not always a comfortable process. And so to break this down into an easy executable tool, one of the things that I have my clients do is what I refer to as a 3-2-1 reflection exercise. And this is best used at the end of the week. Whenever you want to use it, I recommend it being somewhere kind of at the tail end of your week, to really look back and ask yourself a couple of important questions that go into this 3-2-1 exercise. First, the number 3. Think of 3 things that went really well for you during the week. And these don't have to be huge, big achievements, but what are the 3 things that went well for you that you really felt good about, you really felt proud about? And then go a layer deeper. Why did those things go well? Try to find the common threads. What did you do to set up that success? What went in? Was it preparation? How did you create the scenario that you are now chalking up as a win for the week? So identify 3 of those, and then just write out, why did each of these things go well, and see if you can kind of spot the common threads that you can look to magnify and amplify in the weeks ahead. The number 2 is, what are 2 things that didn't go as well as you wanted? What are 2 things that you really want to improve from the prior week? And the write out assignment becomes, what specifically will you do, or how will you improve these things in the week ahead or in the future? And so it's really identifying the same thing as the catalyst to what went well, some of the things that showed up that really didn't generate the results you wanted, and it's identifying how you will change them. And then the last question for the number 1 is, what did you learn about yourself through this reflection process, and why is that important? And so that's a great question to come back to the clarity exercise we talked about earlier, is when you're finding out what's going well, when you're finding out the things that need to be improved on, why is this important to you? And so it's a great way to always come back to, is this aligning with how you're defining success? Is this aligning with how you're defining happiness? So it's a reflection exercise that you can do every week that really just centers everything down to drive the awareness that's always going to make you more effective the very next week. So that's, without fail, one of the tools that just generates incredible awareness and insights, and just has a pretty big impact when you're really thinking about, how do I get better next week than I am this week? This is an incredible tool that can really help that journey.
I suppose challenge to anybody in this sort of my age, it's sort of 60s, middle 60s, you sort of thinking of retiring, is don't just give up on your quit on your personal challenges yourself just because you're too old for work, or you've given up work, or you've been retired, or you want to retire. Just get out and do stuff. Don't stop challenging yourself. Don't stop trying to learn new things. You know, I think it's got this big world out there, and it's still a lot to do. And even though you're over the hill, as they say, you know.
I'm in the middle right now. I called it the August Unplugged Challenge, where 31 days, 30 minutes a day with no phone, no watch, no computer, no book, no journal, nothing that is productive at all. Just a complete 30-minute time frame of just sitting in your own peace and quiet. You know, the times when you want to like be creative, they come from times of unproductivity. You know, it's like you need to put yourself into a boredom state almost. I think what we do so much, and what I was doing, is I have those times of self-care where I sit and quiet, but oftentimes I'm reading a book or I'm journaling. I'm like trying to make it a productive time. No, I'm like, I'm not taking anything for productivity. Like I'm even trying in this time not to think about ideas, of just to actually be as still as possible. So if I have ideas of things I want to do, I'm actually trying to bring those down just as a challenge, to see what comes from it. Some days have been, my mind's freaking racing 1.5 million spots, you know, around. And I felt like there was no clarity at all. Other days got little moments of clarity in there. But what I said from that is, it doesn't matter what the heck happens in this time. My only challenge is I'm going to do it.
You hear it all the time. You hear it like, make today the best, you know, a great day, make today the best day ever. I set out every day and I challenge people, make every day the best day ever. And people are like, oh, come on, Scott, today's going to be a better day than when my children were born. Today's going to be a better day than when I got married. Today's going to be, you fill in the blank of all the amazing highlights in your life. And I say to people, set out proactively to make it the very best day. By definition, it's all you have right now. The past isn't the past. The future isn't here yet. Today's your day. So go out and make it the best possible day. Use your minutes wisely. Think about what you're doing. Stop what you're doing and reflect on, where am I in my life? What am I doing with my minutes? Am I enjoying my life? Am I challenging myself? You know, one of the principles is take a chance and get it done today. Am I taking the appropriate level of risks? Am I willing to fail? Today, and I emphasize that deliberately, is the day to do that. Don't wait until tomorrow.
There are 3 words that do not enter my vocabulary, and they're should have, could have, and would have. You can never go back and change what's been. You can only look forward and move on from that. And I think should have, would have, and could have are very harmful. Don't ever have regret, because you learn from regret. People are also afraid to make mistakes, but you learn from mistakes. Just don't repeat them. And don't ever say, I can't. You can't. At least try. The failure is in not trying. And that's been my motto pretty much all my life. I never say, if someone gives me a challenge to say, you'll never do this or you can't do that, that's the impetus for me to move forward and show them they're wrong. So even if you don't have that much self-confidence, work on it. And just say there's no failure than not trying. Bigger than not trying.
So just because we're talking about play, and the thing that just popped in my mind is, if you're out there and you think I've been talking about all this play, go back and think about, what did I play with when I was a kid? What did I play with when I was a kid? And try to incorporate a part of that into your relationships. Yeah. So one of the things I used to play with is a lot of Barbies and all that kind of stuff. And of course I do therapy, but in the Barbies, they used to act out. Okay. And so one of the things that I've incorporated now for myself is I do improv. Yes, I take improv lessons, but I also incorporate that in my relationships. Sometimes you just be random people and we're just having a conversation about nothing. Yeah. And it's just very fun. We laugh and all that kind of stuff. So
ask the question, if I knew that I couldn't fail, what would I do? So if I knew that anything I started would be successful, I have to work and put in the time, but I know it's going to turn out, what would you do? What would you do differently than you are doing today? And then the second part of that would be, you know, take one step in that direction.
But I think in this case, it's pretty clear. Start monitoring the heart rate variability.
Yeah, and what you want to be able to do is the challenge is this: is I always say it's at least 7 days, right? Because you want to get a kind of a week in its entirety. And I would tell people start tomorrow. And the reason why is because you kind of go, oh well, I have this coming up. There's never gonna be a perfect 7 days, right? Mm. But start with the 7 days and take a look at the numbers and see where they're at, and you know, based on the metric that you have, you know, whether it's a smartphone app, whether it's your heart rate strap and smartphone app, whether it's a wearable or all these type of things, they'll have some sort of normative data that you can find out there, right? So whether the company that's out there, all of them have out what is a good HRV, because everyone always asks, and they'll have some sort of blog post on their website about, hey, what is our normative curves around various ages and genders and alike. So what my challenge for everyone that I see is 7 days. Get at least 7 days in, and it'll be every single day for those 7 days, right? And then from there, kind of see is that, you know, where those numbers are. They typically give you an average of what those 7 days are. Is that an ideal state for where I feel I should be at comparatively to what I know based on what the blog post says? And if you see like, hey, it's not, or yes, it is, but it's interesting when you start tracking your behaviors. You know, if you're going to change something in your life, you do those 7 days and kind of go, okay, well, I'm going to now, the challenges would be change a behavior, whether it's a supplement, a diet, an exercise routine, meditation, mindfulness, whatever. You do some sort of intervention and see what actually happens to your heart rate variability over that time. It's very, very insightful for people to say even some small little changes into what's going on, whether it's implementation of a morning routine alteration, or a nighttime supplement, or whatever may necessarily be. It's quite powerful to show that even some small little change to what's going on can have a massive impact to your health and well-being. So yeah, completely. The challenge would be get 7 days in, take a look at the value. There's many different companies out there that measure it, and then look up, you know, the website and you search into their blog area. What is a good HRV? They'll have some sort of reference range into what's going on, and to see, hey, is this an ideal state? You know, and how their behaviors impact their health and well-being.
Don't ever say ever that you don't have time. We have time for anything that we're committed to. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. There's no way around that. You know, you've got a son, and my son at a young age taught me one of the hardest lessons I ever wanted to learn. And that was, he came into me one day and he goes, hey, Dad, can we play catch later? And I said, yeah, sure, Davey, we'll do that. But let Dad finish up his work right now, though. And, you know, we'll throw the ball later. Didn't happen.
Mm.
Next day, guess what Davey asked me? Hey, Dad, can we do? Yeah, let me Dad finish up with his work, and we'll go play catch. Didn't happen. Third day, my son, now he's all of 10, 11 years old, maybe at this point. He asked me again. And I said, yeah, Davey, let me finish up my work, and da-da-da. He goes, you said that last time, Dad.
Mm.
Never forgot it.
Yeah, hit home.
Never forgot it.
Hit home like a home run, right?
My challenge would be to get up minimum 15 minutes earlier, maximum 30 minutes, and to use that time to read 10 pages of a book. And the book can't be like some romance novel. It has to be a book that is focused on all around sort of your personal growth, whether that's you want to learn more about better financial management, or spiritual, relationships, health, fitness, whatever. But that book is there to help improve you as a person. But use that time specifically for that, before your day starts, before the craziness of the families and work and everything else in between comes up. Sort of a maximum half an hour earlier, minimum 15 minutes, give you enough time to read the 10 pages. Like, use that and do that, ideally for 30 days, and just check in with yourself to see how you feel, because my experience has been, both my personal experience and the people who I help sort of like with this like stuff, it's been remarkable. Like it changes people very quickly in a positive way, and all you're doing is you're just investing in yourself. You're just giving yourself a bit more bandwidth. So I would really encourage people to try that because it's it's game changing.
So it goes like this. You are not who you think you are. You are not who you believe others think you are. You are only who those you are in a relationship with know you to be. So I'll explain it. If you ask me, Daniel, what kind of father I am, I would say to you, Daniel, come on, man. I'm the greatest father in the history of the world. And then you say, well, what does your son think? And I say, I'm pretty sure my son thinks I'm the greatest father in the history of the world. And then you say, well, can I talk to your son and ask him myself? And you talk to my son and you say, and he says, no, man, he's not. I don't even like that guy. Who am I? Am I the guy who believes himself to be the greatest father in the world? Am I the guy who believes his child thinks he's the greatest father in the world? Or am I a mediocre father because the child says that's who I am? And I think that that is a question we should all ask ourselves in that layer with anyone we have a relationship with. We should actually ask people, who am I? Like, who am I? If you have a child, as an example, I've done this with my son. I said, write my obituary. I want you to write my obituary because you probably will. And because I want to know right now who you think I am. And because if I find out that who you think I am is not who I want to be, then now is the time for me to correct that.
Honestly, let's make this low barrier as possible. Just do something today. Just take literally 5 seconds and pick up a pen and a scrap piece of paper or notes that you took earlier in the week or what have you, and just do a little doodle on it. Or next time you find yourself in a meeting in the next week, do a little doodle and just see how that feels for you. Let's make it easy. Let's start there. Just experiencing the power of a doodle. Just take 5 seconds and make a mark on a piece of paper and see how that feels.
Interacting with people. We spent the pandemic of locking ourselves away. And what I mean by this is there are event boards, Facebook. You can go on Discord. You can go around, your local area, downtown, and just go out. I know you love your phone. I know you spend $1,200 on it, but you have 7 days a week. I'm sure you can take a few hours going out to a game night, going out to drink a few beers, watching a game or something. Just get out. Go outside. Spend time with people. It's a great way for being an artist to kind of get the creative juices flowing. And it's also a big part of what makes us human beings, is interacting with others.
So one of the practices that creatives can't help do is the practice of curiosity. And so one way you can practice curiosity, and this we used to do on road trips when I was a kid. We would take long road trips. We had the tent stuffed on the top of the vehicle, and our family of 7 would get in a vehicle, and we'd go up the coast of west coast of the United States and camp. And we would look for, because we didn't have iPhones or iPads back then, our Game Boys. We would look for a certain color car, like an orange car, for instance. How many orange cars or vehicles can we see? And what happens is once you see one orange car, you'll start to see another, and then another, and another. And what scientists have said, that's how you grow your curiosity, is you begin to look for something that may be rare to you, that you want to find. And so in a creative setting, that could be, I'm going to listen to all the pop music to find some inspiration for a new song. And so I'm going to listen to music that I hate. I'm going to try to be curious. I'm going to see, can I try a new meal, a new restaurant? I like routines, but one of the ways to help your creativity is to open your mind. And one way to open your mind is to find some habit or rhythm or practice of curiosity.
The willpower challenge. So willpower is one of the only higher level psychological traits that are very close related with a specific brain area. It's trainable. You have to go against resistance. And the more you do that, for example, you wake up half an hour earlier than you normally do. Then the next day you do the same thing, but then you take a cold shower for 10 minutes. Then the next day you do those two things, and then you start to do 50 push-ups. Then the next day you add half an hour of meditation. Like that every day you do something more that is a little bit, it takes some effort to start doing it and to do it and to finish it. It needs to involve some struggle, because willpower is a muscle that can be trained.
This is a really fun one. I challenge the listeners to go out today and try to fail at something. I'm going to go do this and I'm going to totally fail and see what happens. And I had to do this once. I had a coach challenge us to go out today and do something that you think you're going to fail at. And be okay. Yeah, just know you're going to fail and go out and do that. And I think there's so much freedom in going out and doing something that you're not attached to the outcome. It's like, the odds of this coming true, but putting yourself out there is so freeing.
Sure. I would challenge listeners to really dig into their wealth mindset and how they manage their personal finances, because how you manage anything is how you manage everything. And I mean that it's very difficult for us to compartmentalize, well, I'm organized here, but not there, or I'm responsible here, but not there. So really dig into wealth mindset, personal finance, because you are a reflection of your business or of your side hustle. So get the little things right with respect to your finances and your mentality, and you'll get the big things right with respect to your dreams.
The challenge I have for people is to create their own version of, I have two sort of phrases or mantras, and it's very much how I live my life. And one of them is about being unstoppable. And so that is that trauma, adversity, challenge put in front of me is not going to stop me from achieving my goals or objectives. But the other part to, that word and philosophy is no excuses. And that's not that, for example, when something comes before us that create a trauma or some adversity for us, that we don't feel deeply and have the emotions and feel bad in that moment. What I mean by no excuses is that we actually have a choice in terms of how we're going to choose to respond to that situation. So my challenge to, your listening audience is how to build their own version, their unstoppable journey for themselves, whatever success means and how they define it for themselves. But to do that from a place of no excuses and controlling the things that you can control. And that includes how you react or respond when challenge and adversity comes your way.
Let's just make it our practice to go out of our way to acknowledge people. And that can be the people in our immediate lives. It can be someone in a store who's waiting on us. It can be someone on the end of the phone. It can be, can be sending a letter to your congressman if you like what they did. But let's go out of our way to acknowledge people. We don't know what people are suffering. Most of us, in America, it's like this anyway, and I don't know what it's like where you are, but in America, it seems like we just sort of have this thing about we have to look good. We have to look like we have it all together. We have to look like we're strong and independent. And people are really suffering. They really are. And who knows if you or me just being really kind and acknowledging of someone who waits on us in a restaurant or who serves us in a store, who knows what kind of pain they might be suffering, and they're trying to look good and function, and how much just a smile from us, just a thank you, could change their day.
Well, let's since we're talking about phones and our digital lives, let's start there. So a challenge might be, notice your daily life and notice if you've given up something or some things because it's been replaced by time you're spending on your screen. So, just taking a stock of, where do you really want to be spending your time? What are we letting go of, or what have we actually, maybe unconsciously let go of because we're spending so much time on this device that we want to bring back into our lives? And how can we make that happen? How can we create the space and time to bring some of those other activities that really bring us joy back into our lives?
Here's my challenge for everybody. For the next month, read for 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Because here's how fast you can finish 2 books. If you read for 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening, that's 30 minutes a day. In 30 minutes, somebody who's just starting out, it's about 20 pages. Do that 5 days a week, you get 100 pages. The average book is only about 200 pages these days. I mean, The War of Art is much shorter than that. So you can read 2 books by replacing a little bit of social media in the morning and a little bit of Netflix in the evening with reading a good book. And that's my challenge for everybody.
I would say I challenge anyone who knows that they're not okay to not only admit that they're not okay, but to take it one step further and call a lifeline, reach out to someone. If you're not comfortable calling a hotline, a crisis line, or a warm line, call a friend, call a family member, call a coworker, call someone else that you trust. But reach out and don't be caught up in that fear that I think incapacitates a lot of people, because they're worried about what happens when I call. What are people going to think? What are people going to do? Are police going to come to my door? Am I going to be taken away? People have real, legitimate fears about what happens when you make that call for help. And I mean, sure, there are definitely circumstances in which we do, as crisis counselors, have to get intervention if someone is harming themselves or at imminent risk of harming themselves. That's a unique situation. But for the most part, what we want to do is get you to a safe place. We want to talk. We want to let you talk. We want to let people share what's on their mind and what's in their heart. And we hold that space. And we want to make sure that people are safe and supported. So I would just challenge anybody who's listening who might be struggling to reach out for help, because there is hope. There is hope when you know that there are people out there who are willing to listen and who are willing to give you the resources that you need.
I think for me, the biggest drive behind everything that I do or we do as a family unit is that I don't want to be in a position whereby I want to, one day I'll look back and say, I wish I would have tried that. I think that's, you would have heard this many times before. Up to a certain degree, it's a bit cliche as well, but it is true though. Have you not tried it? How would you know? We always work on the case of what's the worst case that could happen if we decide to do this and if we fail. I think that's the 2 biggest questions for us.
I could give a really good one for folks that are really in like the depths of it, that are going through something really serious and they're really overwhelmed and every day is like a true struggle. And that is to live day by day, but not just live day by day, but instead of focusing on the things that you don't have in that moment, because usually our, deepest, darkest times are times of loss. Either there's something that was taken away that you didn't want taken away, or there's, some kind of opportunity that didn't pan out. So again, that's a loss in a way. To instead focus on what is actually going well for you that day. And I remember when I had first gone through the suicide loss, and I couldn't even get out of bed. It was that bad. I was incapacitated for 3 weeks. My family had to come and help take care of my son. It was crazy. And the way that I was able to get myself out of bed that day was by each morning before I got up, I tried to think of 3 things I was grateful for. And it started off as like stupid stuff. Like, I am so glad that I found my son's missing shoe. I'm so glad I did laundry yesterday that I don't have to do it today, right? These are like real ones that I did. And by doing this again on a daily basis, building up that muscle little by little, you go throughout your day, then kind of searching for that light. of the day, and then it becomes more noticeable. So then the big things kind of pop up. I think a lot of folks, especially when it comes to things like gratitude practices, you think that you have to put all this pressure on it to be like, I am grateful for rainbows and sunshine and all this stuff, where really it could be like something like a really minor convenience, right? That we could be grateful for, which that small, tiny thing can make the biggest difference, especially if you're going through something really serious. And it'll help you get through that morning through going to bed that day, and just focus day by day and do that day in and day out. And your situation will change, guaranteed.
As you were talking, I was anticipating the question, and I lit up like a Christmas tree. Habit tracking. Habit tracking. I do it every single day, and if I didn't, I wouldn't be saying this. I started, there's these little black notebooks behind me, if you can see on video.
Yeah. Yep.
And this was 9 years ago, and I just started to track my habits. I had this little notebook, and I would actually have check boxes, and I would check them in pencil, mechanical pencil, and then erase the check. And then the next day I would check again. And now I do it with my whole team. I have a 20-person team now, 23 departments. We have a charity, big growing business, exponentially growing business. Awesome. Every one of my team members, core team members, tracks habits. Every one of my clients, 17 clients, one-on-one clients, tracks habits. This all started with me by myself after 26, just saying, you know what, I want to get my life on track. And it was these little black notebooks that I would carry around, and I would check off when I did my things. So 20 minutes of learning, check. 30-minute workout, check. 8 hours of sleep, check. Whatever it was. Foam rolling, 15 minutes, check. Simple foundational things that if you do them consistently will change your whole world.
I think my challenge for everybody is, whether you're considering travel or not, travel is a great way to achieve this, but you can do it at home too, is to make your environment more enjoyable today. So remove things that make you feel bad. Like if there's a book on your shelf that you see every day and think, oh, I should really finish reading that. Or you've like a pair of skis in the closet that you bought and never really used, and it makes you feel bad. Get rid of it. And then place things around you that make you feel good. Put a picture that reminds you of a happy memory, or make the background of your phone something that like gets you excited or for something in the future, or makes you happy. And just become more aware of how your environment makes you feel, and then ruthlessly edit that.
Slow things down a little bit. It's always nice to slow things down. We have more time than we think we have. And so when we kind of approach life where we have more time, we will have more time, because it kind of puts everything in balance. And I would say have gratitude for the things that we have in life. Like want what you've got, not what you think you need. And I think that changes our mindset. I think this perspective that we have and how we're moving through the world. So if we approach things from a positive perspective, if what you seek is seeking you, if you go out in the world and you approach it from a positive place, you're going to attract that positivity. You're going to be a happier person. Suddenly the people around you are going to be happier. I mean, if you think about someone can walk into a conference room at work and change the energy of the room, good or bad. How's that possible, right? But we know it is. So if you're walking around in a positive manner, you're going to attract that to you. It's a very base, probably even scientific someday, something. And so I think that's something that we can do. And that's a little thing that you can do is have that attitude and have that grace for yourself. It goes back to that self-love. Walk through the world, love yourself.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to put a challenge out there for anyone, and this is globally, I mean, you're in Germany, you have a European audience base, I'm sure, and Australian and US. So for me, the challenge is to take control of your own health. And the first step in doing that is by going to a doctor or a clinic like mine or your primary care, wherever, any clinic, and ask to test your full range of lab work. Your blood is the window to your health. It shows you everything. So when you go to a doctor, I want you to ask them, I want you to test every single panel that you could possibly test. It's going to cost you a little bit of money. But having that information in front of you is going to be more than you have ever gotten from any medical professional in your life. You are going to see your full comprehensive blood panel, which is going to be showing you, your actual physical blood health. You're going to have a metabolic panel. It's going to show your liver, your kidneys, how everything's working together in your body. You can see your thyroid levels, your hormone levels outside of thyroid, testosterone, estradiol for women, progesterone, IGF-1 for growth hormone. So, you're going to get a huge, impactful piece of data. And people should be doing this every year. People should be doing this every single year. I would even suggest, if you have the money, and this does cost a little bit of money, go and get an executive physical. Executive physical, it lasts about 24 hours. They scan and test absolutely everything. And the older you get, the more frequent you need them. If you're under the age of 30, maybe one every 5 years. If you're from 30 to 40, maybe one every 2 years. Over 40, every year. Spend the money. Your health is the only thing that truly matters when it comes to success. And if you don't take care of it, and if you don't watch yourself, what does it matter? Money doesn't matter. Nothing matters if you're in a hospital bed or if you're dying. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, I think maybe just to think about, scenarios, and particularly if there's been a stressful scenario, and it could be something like, someone, you're meeting someone and they're late, or you've lost your keys, or it doesn't have to be, a major conflict, but maybe just think about that scenario and think about, well, what were my thoughts, feelings, and actions in that time? Would they come under what's wrong or what's strong? And then think about, well, if they're predominantly under what's wrong, how could I rewrite it? What would I be doing? What would I be feeling? What would I be thinking if that situation was rewritten under the what's strong lens?
The very close second is this exercise around identity. Identity. Okay, how do you define yourself? We were not the same person as when we were 7 years old, or 17, or for me, 27, right? We might not be the same person 7 minutes ago. Who knows? Like, we can change these things in an instant. And I believe that we're the only ones that can define ourselves. We're the only ones that can sing our own praises. Other than God, we're the only ones that can truly judge ourselves. And we're the only ones who can tell us who or what we can or can't be. And so identity is critical. This exercise is a 3-part exercise. Grab a sheet of paper or pull up a Google Doc or a Word document, write identity at the top. And then you're going to make 3 sections. The first section is, who have I been? So we're looking in the past. Who have I been? The next section is, who am I now? Who am I now? The third section is, who am I becoming? And I'll tell y'all what most often happens is the past is largely negative. I've been this, I've been that, I've been a drunk, I've been a cheater, I've been, yada, yada, yada. Like, whatever happened in the past that you're moving away from. The present has some elements of, we'll call it negativity, but it's also largely positive. I would say like a 70-30 blend of 70 being the positive, 30 being the negative. And the future, the who am I becoming, is almost always 100% positive, right? And we're all always changing. I think if you're listening to this show, you're on a path of self-improvement in some capacity. I think a lot of us are on that path, right? And we're aiming to get better, and we will get better. But here's the kicker. Here, read this again. And I just deleted the word becoming in the entire document.
Always been.
I am strong. Facts. I am worthy of love. To be able to see that we are way closer to where we want to go and who we want to be than we think. And there's very often a very clear, distinct line between who you've been and who you are now. And that's the little surprise at the end of that exercise, where it's the realization of, oh, this is actually who I am. Like, and I am powerful, and I do got this, and I am making this happen, and it's boom. Those are big old T-bones and ribeyes to your light wolf, right out the gate for folks?
Which is increasing your critical thinking. And I would, challenge you for a day, a week, how long you want, to question everything that is coming to you with, is it really true? Is it true? Is it true? Because you would realize that a lot of the things we take for granted are not actually necessarily true. Like there are many things we believed 5 years ago and 10 years ago and 15 years ago, and science change, culture change, you change. So question yourself.
If anybody hasn't tried breath work, I feel that is, I didn't mention it earlier, but that was also part of my meditation journey. So breath work is a little bit different than meditation because it requires us to engage the body and, really, really alter the way we breathe. But it can really lead us to these beautiful altered states, where from there, an instant feeling of uplift and wholeness within and relaxation. So sometimes it really is about, again, like the dancing, it's like a somatic release. We really charge our bodies with so much mental stuff and technology, and it's the purest form of filtration that we have for our systems.
Yeah, I think for me, it's, read a book, put a challenge in front of yourself of try to find something that's in your niche, if you will, or if your industry, find books about it that are, highly rated and try to read one a week. I did that for a long time. And, when you start a business, you're not necessarily an expert in hiring or firing or recruiting or marketing or, really anything other than, most people start a business because they're good at, baking cakes or working on cars or whatever it may be, but you're not necessarily good at the other parts of the business aspect. And that's why a lot of small businesses, at least here in America, fail, is because people start something because they're good at one thing, but the problem is they're not good at running a business, right? And that's why dentists hire us, is because they don't know how to market. In dental school, they don't teach them how to run a business. They teach them how to be dentists. So that's where we can really help out. So in your case, or your audience's case, get good at the other parts of your businesses if you have one, or, if you don't have a business, get good at other things that you're interested in and expand your horizons, and do that by reading books. I think one a week, you could definitely knock down.
The most powerful challenge I could give your audience, which is a universal challenge relevant to everyone, because no one will sleep properly on. I don't believe a single person, even if they think they do, they don't. So I'm very confident. I sound really arrogant then. I don't mean to be. So the challenge is as follows. We recommend two positions. They're two neutral positions on your back and on your side. They're positions that we support our patients in that can't move themselves, that can't talk. And every 2 to 4 hours, somebody else is moving them. So if those chaps can have a crack, then it feels only fair that your audience can, right? So the positions are as follows. If you imagine being a soldier, you'd slightly bend your knees, you'd stand up straight, your shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles will all be aligned. You'd have equal amount of weight on both feet. That position is what you do on your back. So if you're somebody who lies on their back and you're moving, you're distributing your body weight in all wonderful places, your leg comes out, your arms are flailed over your head, it's normally because you're on a soft bed, and that's okay. We have an arch between where our bottoms start and our backs because of the size of our bottoms, right? So there's always a space between us and the bed, which is a hole for gravity to pull down into. So my challenge is, if you're somebody who lies on your back, stick a pillow underneath your knees and tell me it's not better. If you're somebody who lies on your side, stick a pillow between your knees and ankles. If you are someone who lies on your stomach, choose one of the first two positions. And the challenge is, and happy to follow this up in a way that you think works, but challenge is can you transition from lying in a position that basically is waking you up in pain, or you're snoring, so you're on the sofa. So your positioning is having a negative impact on your life. Now that we've discussed all of this, choose one of those two goal postures, the dreamer or the soldier, and try it for a week. After 30 minutes a night, if it doesn't change, if you can't fall asleep, then go back to your old ways. But all I'm asking you to do is imagine how grandma would expect your posture to be when you sat down and when you stood up. She doesn't want you slouching. She doesn't want you doing this. She just wants you nice and neutral, so everyone knows that you're a good, proud person. Whatever grandma used to shout at us for. But everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say grandma's shouting at you to sit up straight at the dinner table. sitting and standing on your bed in the same way, obviously lying down, and try it for a week. That's my challenge. That's the real challenge. Because if people realize how effective this is, and then realize that mum and dad keeps complaining about neck pain, or, you know, husband and wife, partner, whatever, is always waking up saying the next shoulders are killing. Well, why? What's the reason? What happened between when you fell asleep and when you woke up that's caused this? Because that's when people say it's the worst normally. And the challenge, I guess, is more specific to those people. If you wake up with more pain than when you went to sleep, you've got nothing to lose, not abusing your spine.
Recognizing, okay, this whatever it is I'm in now, a situation, a relationship, something, it's not working, it's sort of itching the wrong way. Having the courage and feeling the empowerment of saying no to that, making that decision, that could also be, I think, a very valuable challenge, at least to some people, some listeners out there.
Focus on what's the next best step, whether it's your health, whether it's your business, whether it's your family. What's the next best step? Because if you get into the mindset of thinking what's the next best step, you will start thinking what's the next best step, and you'll make better decisions, and you'll be more focused. Is it great to be watching television all day? No. No, eliminate television. Eliminate all the inconsequential energy and the inconsequential time spent on things that are meaningless, that are not beneficial to your development. So focus on eliminating distractions, and what's the next best step.
I've been on this healing journey from my past traumas, and I've come to a kind of a crossroads where I've realized that I really have an issue with expressing anger, because to me, anger is a very unhealthy emotion and it breeds very dangerous situations. And so I've always shied away from that, but obviously things build up. And I've started to realize that, and I've made kind of like a social experiment looking around me, that people are not comfortable with naming their emotions. Like, it's fun to say, oh, I feel joyful, oh, I feel happy. But if something really upsets you and you feel a little bit off that day, you're kind of reluctant to tell yourself or to admit to yourself, oh, I'm angry or I'm frustrated, because that's kind of a negative emotion, right? And you don't want to associate with that. So my challenge for myself at the moment is, like, when I'm feeling these feelings, to not only recognize that I'm feeling it, but to name that emotion and to understand where that emotion is coming from, and that all emotions are healthy in some way. And I thought about this for a long time, and I've been looking around at people around me, and I've realized that it really is a bigger challenge than you think it is, because nobody wants to admit that they're irritated today or frustrated or angry, or it's just not a fun emotion to admit. So yeah, that's my challenge. Like, recognize when you're feeling something and name the emotion, and then deal with where that emotion is coming from.
Positivity is one of the best things that you could give yourself. To be positive with the people that you meet, your surroundings, because that changes the whole dynamic in your life. If you're struggling and you accept that the universe does put out positive vibes, and just sit still for a minute and take it in. And if you, and we talked about it, it's hear it, you have to see it, and not everybody does. But I say, take a moment. And for me, it's in the mornings. When I wake up, whether the sun is risen or it's usually when it's becoming dawn, I sit with my cup of coffee and my one vice. I do smoke, and I have for 30 years, so it's not going to change. And I sit out there with my coffee and my cigarette, and I just listen, and I kind of close my eyes. And I do have an amulet that I wear, and I hold on to it. And I always say to myself, give me the answers for today. And, you know, it could be long-term. Sometimes I ask for long-term things. Sometimes it's just, what can you give me for today? And if you just sit there and sit with yourself, and I say to people, just sit in stillness for a second, and it will come. The positivity will come. Extremely negative people. I have a mother who's extremely negative, doesn't understand positive vibes, and but it's out there for you. You just need to get it. So I would say a challenge: sit with yourself, be real with yourself, and take in the positivity, because it is all around you.
I think something that has really, really helped me a lot is asking me the tough question of, is this the number one thing I could be doing right now? It's not, is this productive or is this useful? Because, I mean, there are things I could do right now that would be useful, but it would be maybe a hundredth as useful as this other thing I could be doing. So I would encourage the listeners here to try for a week, whenever you're doing something, whether that is, going to the gym or it's working, especially with work, ask yourself, okay, what's the intention of this right now? What's the thing in my life that I'm trying to improve with this activity? And then follow that up with, is this the number one activity that I could possibly be doing for this result right now? So sometimes when people are scrolling on social media for 3 hours, if you ask them, why are you doing that? Well, I need to relax. I'm doing it to relax. Okay, is that the number one way that you could be relaxing? Because you could also be going for a walk in nature. You could also be meditating. You could also be listening to some piano. It would probably relax you more in 20 minutes than 3 hours of social media would do. And the same thing if I'm you know, at work, and you can do this whether you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, but also at all the jobs I've ever worked at, this would have worked great. I just didn't, know the tool back then. But ask yourself, okay, why am I doing this? And is this the number one thing? There's nothing else I could be doing right now that would move me forward faster or more effectively than this activity right here. And if the answer is not no, and this is going to sound a little bit harsh, this is going to be, but for me personally, my kind of rule of thumb is, if I'm not working, and this is when I'm working in my business, if I'm not working on my number one bottleneck, and I'm not doing the number one thing that alleviates that bottleneck, then I'm not working. Because if I'm not doing that, then I'm doing something else, and I'm doing that because it's easier, or it caught my attention and pulled me away. If I'm not doing the number one thing to solve the number one problem, then I'm not working.
Being grateful for a couple of things every day. I mean, just the fact we wake up alive, that's almost like magic, isn't it? After we've been sleeping, hopefully sleeping, well. Yeah, just the simple things, really. And thinking about other people, and maybe just sending them some love, or writing them a message, thinking about, who do I need to connect to? Who maybe might just need a little hello today, how are you? Because when people think about us, even just energetically, they receive it, I believe, because we're all interconnected in this energy field that we live in. So sending a bit of love to people, and it's like just in the street, give them a smile, say hello. I mean, I know in Australia everyone's very friendly and people do say hello a lot. I mean, in England we're a bit more reserved, and we're a bit more sort of head down on the tube and no one talks to each other. But yeah, just giving that smile can change someone's day. And just being kind to people, and just taking your time to breathe and not be rushing around like a lunatic. Just like breathe for a moment, stop, take a few deep breaths into your belly, and ask yourself how you feel and what you need.
I would encourage anyone who was adopted or in a similar experience. I've actually had people tell me that, their parents were divorced when they were young, and they felt this, and one left and they felt these same feelings. And so there are various situations, but let's stick to adoption because I wrote about that. The first thing I want to say is trust yourself. And your gut's telling you, I don't feel normal. I feel disconnected. I feel scared. I feel uncertain. I feel sad. Don't let anyone tell you that's not true. You are feeling those things. So always trust your gut, and then, get help. I've had therapists. I was in and out of therapy my whole life, and that really helped me process and understand and affirm what I was going through. Books that I read, you know, and when I grew up, people that had been through a similar experience. So listen to your gut. Find help processing what you're feeling to be able to manage those feelings, and talk about them, share them. I tell my sons, even when they're going through a hard time, it has nothing to do with being adopted, they are my biological children, but I said, share what you're going through with friends. And, at first, especially being guys, I guess it's like, oh no, I go, no, seriously, just try it. Share that with one or two friends. And one of my sons recently did that, and he said, oh, you're right. Wow. Suddenly they're saying, oh yeah, I had that experience too. Or, sure. Said, just take that first step and be honest with people about what you're struggling with. And I think you will feel embraced and recognized and stronger for it than assuming no one else is experiencing this and you're facing this alone. I don't think you're ever alone. I think people have always experienced what you're going through. But trust your own feelings. Don't let anyone tell you to deny them. Find help processing them and understanding them and accepting them and being able to live with them, and share the experience of being human and learning and growing.
The ideal thing would be to say travel, but I know it's unrealistic, because I know traveling opens your mind to things that you never really thought you'd see, cultures, religions, languages.
One challenge that comes to mind are crucial conversations. Most of us, if not all of us, have people in our lives that we wish we could have a particular type of conversation with, but for various reasons, out of insecurities and fears and past experiences, we do not have that conversation. And it could be with a spouse, it could be with a parent, a child, a good, dear friend, whomever it happens to be. And my suggestion as a challenge is take that seriously. I would love for you to see more intimacy in yourself in this relationship. And that requires you to be honest. And that requires you to work through the things that keep you from being honest. And when I say honest, I don't mean you're lying, but you're withholding. There's things that you're not willing to share out of fear. So whether you need a coach or a therapist or just a dear friend, I would suggest being really clear. You can journal about what you'd love to say if the other person had been. Imagine the other person's completely open to what you need to share. So there's not going to be judgment. There's not going to be criticism. That might not be true, but so act as if it is, and literally write them the letter. Or if you want to do in front of a computer and do a video or an audio, just speak to them. However whatever you feel is most best for you to express yourself auditorily or visually or in writing, and literally do that. And while you're doing that, notice inside of yourself where the contractions are, where the fears pop up, where the insecurities pop up. And it could be in the breath, literally I'm holding my breath. It could be something going on in my belly area. Okay, there could be you hear something in your own mind's eye, a language, being a very particular language. It could be a person that you hear, it could be your own voice, it could be a particular volume, it could be imagery you see, whatever it happens to be. But there's usually this whole gestalt we have of how we don't do what we would like to do out of fear. And the more you become aware of that, the better, because not only do you do the practice of writing the letter or doing the audio or the video, but as you become aware of the contractions in your system that keep you from doing it, then you can go to a therapist or a coach or on your own, depending on how good you are at your own kind of self work, and work through those things. Oh, there's a contraction in my breath. That's interesting. Let me sit with that. What's that about? Why is there fear showing up in my breath? Or there's some tightness in my jaw or around my ears, my jaw area. What am I afraid to share? Why is my body not wanting to express itself verbally? All that's really valuable information. So my point in all this is hey, first, I would suggest you choose an easier one, not the biggest crucial conversation ever, but maybe a smaller one so you can practice all the things I just walked through. Become aware of why you might not want to do the actual conversation, and use that as information to kind of deconstruct those patterns in your system. And most likely work with someone, a good friend, a therapist, or coach, whomever. And I'd say that's an amazing crucible. because the less fear you have, or at least operating, as long as you don't operate from that fear, the more authenticity and more honesty you have, the deeper the relationships can be and will be down the road. And I also recognize that some people don't receive well other people's truths, and it can cause challenges in the relationship. That's also valuable information. It tells you the capacity of this other person to be with you, who you really are. Okay, not to say you shouldn't or should be with them. That's a whole other conversation, but valuable information on the reality of the relationship.
Everyone listening has to write down everything that bothers them. Like, take a notepad with you throughout the day, every little thing, and you will be shocked. Like, I'm telling you all now, you will be shocked. Even if I did it to this day, there's still stuff that's your work. That's your work. That's offering higher dimensions to you, because your suppressed emotions are your suppressed potential. So what I'm really trying to say is everything that bothers you is a portal to a higher potential. Like, literally, you can release something that's dense and packed up inside of you, release it and integrate it to expand. You don't expand through your mind by like forcing a belief and an affirmation. You're trying to play God with your mind, you know? It's the same thing as, like, I give this example because my wife just had a baby. We just had a baby. Like, my wife didn't make the baby. She ate food, she slept, and the baby was formed in her, which is so incredible. A divine intelligence did that. We don't have to beat our heart like manually. So why are we trying to do that with our mind? Why are we trying to shove stuff and manipulate our mind? We're trying to play God. There's a divine intelligence that if you let go, so I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but if you list what bothers you, that list of every single thing is a portal that if you can release that attachment and that feeling that's inside of you, you access a greater potential and you expand. And so the first step is awareness. List everything that bothers you. Now you can go at it on your own, listen to this podcast a few times, try to like give some structure of how to navigate that, or you can get help like navigating that too. But that's a challenge I would offer everyone.
I'll throw a challenge out, kind of in the vein of what we've been talking about with distraction. And I call this like the app challenge. And to your listeners now, you can do this while you're listening to us, but it's basically, you can take your phone, because we talked about how big our distractions were, especially with our phones, and unlock your phone. And there's an app on there that you use more than any other app. And this app consumes more time of your phone usage than anything else. And this is where it's going to get a little tricky. You know, you on an iPhone, that's what I have, you know, you put your finger on it and then the icon starts shaking, and then you might start shaking because that one is, you don't want to accidentally delete it, because what happens if you delete it? It's gone. But I'm going to ask you to delete it. And that's it. Hit the button, delete that app. And don't open that app. Like, you can't open it because it's deleted. You can re-download it, but don't re-download it. Just take it off your phone and just go that way for 1 week. See what happens in your life. See what happens with your goals. See what happens with that time that you're replacing with the time that you used to put on that app. And I call that the app challenge. This is ripping off the Band-Aid. So we're going to walk through this again. Open your phone, select the app, delete the app, close your phone, and that's it.
When we spoke about interrogating your thoughts, is to really give yourself time to reflect on what matters to you. And, you know, to answer these questions. So what does success mean to me? To be asking yourself consistently, you know, because the answer to this in 2024 might be different in 2025 and 2030. So what does success mean to me? What does fulfillment look like to me? What sort of impact do I want to have in my life? And what would I do if money was no object? And what happens is if we keep asking ourselves and reflecting on these daily, these are not necessarily easy questions to answer, but if we can ask ourselves daily, you will eventually bubble, the answers will bubble to the surface. You'll get clearer and clearer about the person you want to be in the world, how you want to make an impact. And when you are that person, when you are your authentic self, when you are true to yourself, and you are showing up in the world as your unique, exceptional blueprint, that's when you're going to make the biggest impact in the world, number one, and your relationship with yourself will improve. And from that place, you will also be able to know who you want to partner with on that journey. And then you can build healthy relationships with other people. But it all starts with knowing yourself and what matters to you. So I would just keep asking those questions.
I think there's lots of different things that we can do. For me, I would ask someone, because ultimately when you come out of an abusive relationship, you're kind of stuck in the now, is what I would say. And what I want people to create is that clarity of thought. Okay. And also that vision of what your future would look like. So for me, what I did at that point, I created a vision board for the next 12 months across the board, looking at my relationships, looking at my job, to give me that clarity of what I wanted my future to look like, and if we're thinking about our positive self-talk to ourselves every day, then that is going to have a real impact on what our vision board looks like and where we are in 12 months' time. So if I said to you, if I said to anyone really, think about that negative voice that you have in your head. Would you speak to a child in that tone of voice? And most people would say no. And why wouldn't you speak to a child in that tone of voice? Because probably it would be hurtful to them, or they may be harmed in some way, but it's okay to talk to you in that way. So I suppose I would put that out there for people to think about. What does that voice sound like in your head? So that's one thing I would offer you. Something else I would offer, which sounds a little bit more bizarre, if you like, is if you think of your internal you, how you're thinking at the moment, how you're feeling at the moment, and you put an external copy of that outside of you, like a hologram, and you looked at that, what would it look like? Is that how you want to look? Or do you want to change what you see?
If you got knocked out of your business or out of your life for 30 days, what would you come back to? And oftentimes I'll ask that question, there'll be silence, there's a little bit of panic, both on the business and the personal side from a leadership perspective, because people will often go, well, I don't think I'd come to much. I don't think I'd come back to much of my business. And on the personal level, a lot of people would be worried about my finances would be out of order. My house would be, in disarray. Maybe some of my relationship would be topsy-turvy. And I go, man, well, that's a great indicator that maybe you need some systems in your life. Right. And I don't say that in a way that we need to micromanage people or, everything needs to be laid out A to Z. I mean, more for me, I came from a place where, in full disclosure, I still go through this. I haven't beat my diagnosis yet. It's been 12 years. But I would go through things where, I'd get knocked up for 3 weeks. And the next thing you know, I come out and, there's garbage everywhere and, food's gone bad and, my relationships are suffering because I was knocked out for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, I can't look at a screen. 3 weeks, I got knocked out. And, in our world today, things are happening to people. People are battling, mental health stuff. They're battling a lack of motivation. You don't get to decide medically what happens to you sometimes. And so I think it's leaving people with this challenge, this framework. Okay, so if you were to disappear for 30 days and you came back, what would you come back to? So now all the things that first come to mind, those are the things that I want to start to put systems in. If you're worried about your relationships, how can you do your relationships different? How can you let people into your life a little differently? If it's your business you're worried about, how do you create layers of separation so that someone else is carrying that as well? There's so many different ways, but I love that challenge. I love asking that question because it's also going to help you determine what your priorities are. What you may think you know what your priorities are, but the answer to the question, what would you come back to, usually brings to the surface, oh my gosh, my family, or oh my gosh, my bank account. And you'll find out pretty quickly what your priorities actually are.
At the end of the day, I think the one thing that, I've always felt like I'm lucky and I'm blessed. And I coach small businesses as well. And I say to them, I said, listen, if you want to find, or you want opportunity to find you, better said, you really need two things. You need to prepare and you need to be lucky. Because if you're lucky and you're not prepared, opportunity may just pass you by. And if you're prepared and you're not lucky, you may not see that opportunity. But at the end of the day, you have to put in the work. You don't just sit there and go, oh, they're going to come knocking at my door and back up the truck. No. So part of the other thing is, you know what? It's the hardest thing is to try to let, your thoughts create your life. So it's try to live in the moment and say, listen, be grateful because, my background, obviously, with all the traveling that I've done, I'm still amazed at the gratitude I have every time I eat a bite of food or sleep in a comfortable bed with air conditioning and, I have a roof, I have food for that matter, much less just appreciating it. All those little things, I feel so fortunate, and I try every day to write down things that I am grateful for. Now that my shoulder's working and I can get back in the pool and swim, now that I can, walk the dogs and, that I can have the gratitude for all of these things, and it's sad too, because I'm very aware, being born a white guy in the United States in the 60s. I mean, come on, right? It's hard to screw that up. I tried, but sometimes you see other places and you see those people and you're like, would I have ever done much with that except, live in that environment? So the gratitude to me is a big deal. I have my little morning routines. I get up, walk the dogs, I sit down, I do some gratitude and some meditation, and that's kind of how I start my day. And then I finish my day writing down what I was grateful for that day.
The first step in terms of personality typing, I always encourage my students to do is use fictional characters, because fictional characters you can practice and the challenge would be research the methodology on my website so that you can kind of figure out how to do this process. And then I would say every day, just pick one fictional character that, whether you like them or not, pick that character and try to type them and figure out what their personality is. And then ideally pick two characters that are in a relationship. It could be any romantic, it could be parental, parent-child, it could be boss, employee, but any relationship that has a bit of conflict, and then see if you can figure out what their personality types are, and then start understanding, because this person is like this person is like this, so thus they are conflicting in this way. And I think if you do that with fictional characters first, because, once again, those fictional characters won't snap back at you. Then once you start doing that every day, then maybe you can start doing that in your real life with real people.
I'm going to give you one of my most popular, very direct processes that you can put a filter through anything. So if we picture a triangle, and I can actually send you the picture after this, in the bottom corner, we have catch, top, challenge, bottom, change. So catch, challenge, change is the process that I filter everything through. To fix any problem, you have to be aware of it. So you have to be able to catch it and say, hey, this isn't really it. When you say things like, oh, I always mess things up, you have to catch that. You have to be able to see it and acknowledge it and be aware of it. You have to challenge that, because always, every time, you always mess things up. It's 100% of the time. You've never gotten anything right in your life, ever. Or are you being a little bit extra? Are you putting a little salt on this, And if you find that you are, which 10 times out of 10 you are, you have to change that. Like, okay, I don't always mess this up, but I've messed this up 4 times. I'm like, wow, 4 out of how many times have you got things right? I'm not really good at math, but I can tell you the odds are that you've done this better than not, And when we put things through that catch, challenge, change process, we start to rewire neuroplasticity, this whole process of being able to change the way we think. We start to rewire the way we think and believe and act. It sounds like complete BS in the beginning because you're so conditioned to have negative responses. You've gotten really good at it. And if you were really good at playing basketball and I immediately told you to go to golf, you would be like, oh, sports, that doesn't make sense. This is complete. Yeah, it's a different skill. It's a different skill and you have to give yourself time to put this process to work. But when you're able to be aware of what's going on and actually challenge and change the language or concepts that you're doing that are actually hurting you, then we can start to make small compound effect of change over time. And thoughts that you usually had to be very active with to fix now naturally go through that process.
I believe that with AI, we need to learn to adopt it, especially in the workplace, because AI isn't going to replace us, but the person using AI will definitely have an advantage over us and can replace us. We are a 100-person organization, and we are able to do the work of a 1,000-person organization because every person in our company uses AI in some capacity, from engineering to writing code, design, to answering support tickets, to marketing copy. Everything, every person, including myself, we use AI to automate and streamline work. So it makes us super productive. And companies that are at our scale that don't use AI are at 1,000 to 2,000 employees. So AI has a really tangible impact, and it's an important skill set, just like how you know how to use Excel or spreadsheets and build financial models, or do research and analysis. It's an important skill set that even non-technical folks are learning to use.
I started actually journaling a long time ago, and with journaling, I incorporated. This is funny. It started out with just writing down how my day was and where the hiccups were to identify what can I improve in the day. So I wrote at night just how my day went. Now I have in the morning a gratitude book where I actually write gratitude because it sets the tone for the day. Makes a big, big difference. I have at night my journal, and I have a food journal. By writing it down, and this is important, writing it down by pen and paper, not in your phone, not, I mean, some people just love it to track on the phone, but there is something about writing it, what gives you a deeper connection to what's happening and a better memory of what's going on. And you connect the dots with your emotions and with the facts much, much better. And it's very, very powerful, and that changes everything. So I'd recommend to just literally have a book and writing it in a book and having some time where you take time. It's like a self-care plan where you do a short meditation or a short breathing exercise and really ground yourself and get ready for the day. Like have a moment just by yourself and no distraction, and just listen to your body and check in. A check-in is so important. That makes a difference how you go through the day.
So I will share what has helped me when I've fallen out of routine, because this morning routine, it doesn't take long. You don't need to meditate for 15 minutes, which I used to find, overwhelming, because you're like, I've got all this stuff to do, your analytical brain. So speaking to that person, the first thing, if you're waking up and struggling to get out of bed, there's a chance that you're probably going for your phone straight first thing in the morning. And if you look into the research of what that does to our creative side of our brains, it really puts us in that state of fear straight away. So the first thing I do now with my morning routine is literally just take a deep breath. So no phone, nothing. But like with the inhale, like it's all through the nose and out through the nose. But when you inhale for about 5 seconds or so, then exhale for about 7, and do it a couple times. And I've just found that just really relaxes me instead of this shit emails. Oh, I've got all this stuff, So then from there, we go. So it's one deep breath, just to simplify it. So no mobile phone. That's my golden rule that I teach to people, and if they want to do their own thing. But I tell them this is what I say that works for me. No mobile phone at all for one deep breath and then one thought of gratitude. And the key for me is to find something simple. It could be, my dog, could be my family, something that's something that just, if it was gone tomorrow, I would be very sad, so something to appreciate now. And with that gratitude, it's really important not just to think about it, but to really to feel it, to hear it, to see it. So, and then we move on to one intention. So let's say, for example, I had a big podcast with today. I want to visualize me communicating well, me visualizing adding value, me performing well to my best. And that can be whatever task that you've got for today, something big that's coming. And that's pretty much simply it. And then I'll drink about a glass of water to really rehydrate myself and have some protein. And that to me, it only takes about 10 minutes. But if you try it, try it for a couple days and see how it goes. I found a big benefit for how I feel to take on the day.
The emotional connection and the vulnerability is really the glue, the heartbeat of any relationship, right? And sometimes when emotional connection falters, people don't really know how to bring it back. So that's what I often challenge couples is try what I call the heartbeat exercise, because it's like an up and a down and then a together. So ask your partner about something that made them proud. And then when they tell you, celebrate them, right? So that's the up. The down is ask them about a point of pain, right? Because that's showing them that you can hear their vulnerability, you can hear their pain. And when they share it with you, provide care, provide of empathy, right? So, and then the final one, the connector, is ask your partner if there was something that gave them any pleasure today, right? And so that could be like, yeah, I went on a walk, or, but sometimes what I find when couples do this is they're like, there was no pleasure today. I was late for work. I spilled my coffee. Work was stressful. And so then it gives you an opportunity to connect with them. It's like, well, then let's share a moment of pleasure. Let's go for a walk around the block. Let's sit outside and watch the sunset. Let's hold hands. Let's cuddle. And so that little heartbeat exercise, I think, if your emotional connection has flatlined, start kind of putting that, ask your partner about pride, pain, and pleasure, and watch that kind of heartbeat come back.
I think that to every day try and pick one adventure to take yourself on. And that adventure can be big or small. I think that can be a small adventure like going out to and trying a new coffee shop, or it can be as big of an adventure as deciding to go and book a flight, or it can be something simple like going to a museum or being a tourist in your own city and doing a double-decker tour bus in Los Angeles, or something that puts you out of your normal routine and element. Because when you disrupt the thing that you do every day and you change something, suddenly your perspective shifts as well. And when I was living in Los Angeles as a freelancer and a TV writer, the thing that I would always do is like decide to write in a different location for the day. And so if I had a day off or a weekend day, I would decide to go and like write from like the Hammer Museum in Westwood, or Bodega Coffee in Santa Monica, which you can kind of smell the ocean from this like open door kind of coffee shop that turns into a wine bar at night. And so being able to be in different areas or go on a hike you haven't done before. And I think it just really rejuvenates creativity and allows you to feel more present than if you're just in the rote. This is what I do every day. I have every weekend scheduled out for 10 months from now. Like instead of having that, really embracing the spontaneity of doing something new.
Okay, so if you are trying to go into business, I want to leave people with this. I want to say definitely do your research. Do your research. I don't know if everybody is spiritual or anything, but I would definitely say pray and meditate, just to kind of get a clear mind to think exactly what you want to do. But starting with doing your research. And if you have someone to help you, like someone that you know that's in business, reach out to them. Don't be scared to ask questions. I ask a lot of questions. People tell me all the time, you ask a lot of questions, because I need to make sure I have all the information I need to succeed. So ask questions, do your research. If you got to hire people to help you, hire them. If you don't have the money or resources to do that, YouTube is where I say YouTube University, because you can really learn anything off of YouTube. Study your competitors. If it's somebody in your in the same business as you, study them, look at what they're doing, try to see what you can do differently than what they're doing to bring customers to you. But like I said, do your research, study. Reach out to people that that can help you, whether it's family, friends, get a mentor. And yeah, I think that if you and keep going, like even if you think like, oh my God, this isn't working out for me, because I have those moments all the time, even to this day, it will work, because consistency, anybody that's consistent will win. You just gotta stay through it. It don't matter if it takes 10 years to get where you gotta go, do it. Stay to it, stick to it. And because that's what I'm doing, and I'm going to win.
Next time something takes you back to a dark day, or if you're going to an event or somewhere, or you're going to have something that's hard to do, anxiety, or if you're laying in bed and you're having a real hard time getting out of bed to go somewhere or do something, think about exactly the easiest one is, okay, I'm so depressed that obviously the obvious answer is I'm so depressed that I can't get out of bed. And so go someplace else, take and come up with 3 different crazy, absolutely ridiculous things. I'm so crazy, I peed myself. I can't get out of bed, and so whatever, just crazy stuff. And you find you get out of your head and into the humor, and it's so healing.
Yourself like a channel or a pipe from the divine, invisible world into our physical world, and you can receive through you love. You receive it from the divine, enjoy it, flow it out. That same pipe, you expand it by practicing, experiencing, and enjoying love and sharing love. But that same pipe, imagine it's like your internet bandwidth or like a pipeline for oil. That same pipe also flows guidance and also flows abundance. And so the more you practice opening your heart, or that pipe that you are, that channel that you are, by practicing receiving love from whatever your God is, or whatever your source of light and love is, or the people around you, and receiving love and enjoying it, and then flowing it out and sharing it, the more insight and creativity and intuition is given to you. And also the more kind of invisible magnetism goes through you as well, that allows you to notice the right things and have the right things gravitate to you.
If you do want to write, my best advice is, first of all, write every day. And second of all, set yourself a very small amount of words to write every day. And so if you accomplish that, like if you write, even if you write 200 words every day, at the end of 200 days, you'll have 40,000 words, right? So after half a year, you have a novella. So, and then that's just from writing 200 words a day.
When you're putting out any kind of program, or really trying to create anything in your life, in your business, you have to give yourself white space. So you're a creative person. I'm sure you can relate to this. A lot of times and what I see people do is they think action is the way to get this done. So they fill their calendar with all these little tasks or things that they could do, when what we actually need is some space sometimes to let ideas and let priorities flow to us. And course creation is a creative act. It is a creative endeavor. And I think really anytime we're putting out anything new, whether we're trying to put new change into our life, or into our business or our relationships or whatever it may be, like we need white space. So I'm always a huge fan of giving people the permission slip to like give yourself some unscheduled time where you can just let it flow.
The mantra that I shared earlier, I really firmly believe you need to have a mantra. If you don't adopt a mantra, then you're kind of it's not that you don't have any forward momentum or directional axis or anything like that, but I live and die by mantras, just like I live and die by Microsoft Outlook. I know exactly what's happening. I'm communicating with everybody, got my reminders popping up. A mantra is it defines who you are and what you do. They also can be tremendously affirming in those moments where you're struggling for success, struggling for, excuse me, validation and worth. And another mantra that I really love that I've adopted says, someone's endorsement of you or lack thereof, in this case, as an author, someone's purchasing your books, someone giving you a 5-star or a 1-star review, any of that stuff, or lack thereof, has very little to do with your trajectory. I love that phrase because we can hang our hat so much on, did I get a new review? Oh, F5, let's refresh this website. And what did these people say? And did I get any more likes or followers? We all do it. I mean, I'm not immune to that, but that does not define my trajectory. It has very little to do with it. Your trajectory is forward. So just, it's kind of like Rocky said to his son in the movie Rocky, it's not about how hard you can hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
As we talk about awareness, right? Know thyself. I think moments of silence, whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, breath. I'm also a trainer for the Institute of Heart Math. So I have a connection to understand the coherence between the heart and the brain. And when you start to do that and you go inward and you start to recognize, if you think there's too many thoughts, that's okay. Just let them run. Like, again, you talked about being the observer. See the thoughts like you're in a movie theater, just watching, oh, there's Jessie thinking about that. Why is she thinking about, let me just watch. And the more you do that, you start to become aware of yourself. You start to become aware of how you think, what you think, why you think that, right? The only thing I ask of you is that, and I'm going to have right here because I have it for my clients, you don't bring this to the table. And this is the judgment hammer, right? So when you go into meditation, prayer, thought, whatever, or stillness, don't judge the thoughts. Just allow them to run. You're not doing it wrong, I promise. So a practice for me, whenever I come up against a challenge or anything, I pause. There's a power in the pause. Pause, recollect my breath. The second thing I would say is start to ask your body. Just right now, if you just take a deep breath and ask your body, where is my yes? Your body will tell you, you'll feel it. And where is my no? Right? And my yes is right here. My no was down here in my sacral. And it was like, oh, wow, interesting. And the reason I say that is because that is where your truth lies. What happens sometimes when we make decisions or something happens and we're not aware, we don't know this, we don't have this relationship with our bodies, we will say yes when we mean no, right? We will go from what we feel and then we'll go right to our head and we'll try to make logical sense as to why you need to say yes or no, or why you need to not speak up or whatever. We always say in your head, you're dead. Right? Because your head is going to go from past experience, is going to go from practicalities, is going to go from data points, but your heart, it knows, and your heart will never let you do harm to another. So trust it, learn to trust it, but you got to cultivate these practices. Moments, clock yourself, 30 minutes would be amazing. 15 minutes, 5 minutes of stillness, just start. And in that, you'll start to recognize who you really are and what your truth is. And then speak it unapologetically.
My challenge would be for aspiring writers to read first and read every day, which can be tough to do just with how busy life can get. But I would say read 30 to 60 minutes every day. Some people say read 5 pages a day, which would be a great start. But if you can really read 30 to 60 minutes a day, it's going to revitalize that creative spark, and it's going to make you, again, kind of compare and contrast yourself with artists and everybody is unique in their own way, but you can still take lessons from your favorite authors, your favorite poets, and kind of incorporate that into your own work and make it unique to you.
In terms of being a CEO, I'm very intentional about being pragmatic in work and putting my emotions to one side. And that's something somebody taught me very recently. When we need to move forwards with something and we're not going fast enough, we tend to press the accelerator, work harder, work longer hours, not take lunch breaks, whatever it might be. And he pointed out to me, rather than press the accelerator, why don't you just take the handbrake off? And taking the handbrake off involves moving emotions to one side, identifying them, putting them to one side, saying, great, that emotion of fear about what's going to happen tomorrow, or the emotion of overexcitement is one that I struggle with a lot. Just put it to one side and make the decision. And you'll find that your business at least moves along much, much more smoothly and much faster. And it works an absolute treat. So that is the thing I'm consciously doing every day at the moment.
One of the things that I found when I was looking at ways to reduce my stress, for those that are type A personalities like I am, a lot of times we don't have time to spend. I remember looking at books that on deep breathing or yoga or meditation, and it was like a 300-page book on one activity. The reality is when we're stressed, we probably only have just a couple of minutes to do something about it. And one of my favorite, and I kind of touched upon that here when we were talking about anxiety, about visualization, but what I would say is I'll just walk you through a visualization exercise that the audience members can try and see if this is something that works for you. If you're listening to this while you're driving a vehicle, please press pause and pick it back up after you're not driving a vehicle, because you're going to close your eyes. And I want you to go in your mind to a place you like to relax. Call it your happy place. Maybe it's the beach. Maybe it's a park. Maybe it's a lake. Maybe it's your backyard. Maybe it's the spa. Maybe it's your favorite chair in your home. Wherever it is, go there now and take in all of your senses. So what do you feel? Do you feel the sun on your face? Maybe the sand or the grass under your feet? And what do you smell? Do you smell the fresh air? Maybe the lotion from the spa? Maybe you made popcorn for your favorite movie. And what do you hear? Do you hear the wind blowing through the trees? Maybe the water splashing on shore? And what do you see? Do you see the blue sky? Maybe the green of the trees or the grass? Whatever it is, take it all in and take another deep breath in and open your eyes. Simple visualization you can do at any point. Takes 1 minute, again, as long as you're not driving a vehicle. And it just can help calm you so that you can take a moment, be present with yourself. And the reason that you imagine your senses is because when you imagine your senses being incorporated into wherever you go in your mind, then your body automatically relaxes.
Realizing that anybody can be creative. Anybody, literally anybody. I made this up. I decided one day, just hanging out in a club, I was like, what if I was like a cool artsy dude? Just thought to myself, like, what if I just, was artsy one day? And I started being artsy, and I started painting and being about color theory and space and time and all this whimsical shit. And I learned it for real. It happens. So anybody can do it. There's no super secret. You have to just work hard in life, have that discipline, push forward to be the thing you want to be. It's not rainbows and sunshine the whole way through. You got to actually find out what the scientific theory is behind how you're going to execute what you're going to execute. But go for it. The first thing is just to go for it. Like, the only person stopping you is you.
I thought about this. I read about it. I knew it was coming. And I don't know that you're going to love my challenge, but I do have a challenge. And my challenge is I encourage every woman who is listening to brighten their lipstick and wear lipstick every day for a month. I do radio about beauty and style, every week. And it's one of the things that I think as we get older, we decide not to wear lipstick or we, choose the wrong colors. But if we brighten our lipstick, we can brighten our smile. We can bring more life to our face. But the other thing, this is the one thing that we have an advantage of. Women, we have the ability to draw a bright ring around our information box. So literally, this is our information box, and we have the ability to draw attention to it. So I just want to challenge your listeners, your female listeners, but your men too if you want, to wear a brighter color lipstick for 1 month and see if that doesn't change everything.
Well, sure. So earlier, Danielle, you mentioned, I think you mentioned technology and, time management, certainly. One thing that I've done, so what was the problem? I was noticing that I was spending a lot of time on my phone before bed. So technology in bed before I'm trying to go to sleep was hindering my sleep quite a bit. And one decision I made a few months ago, as I said, the phone does not mesh with the bedroom. So I'm going to leave my phone at night in my office, charge it. And I bought an old school clock. It looks like something from the 80s. Love it. Remind me of my childhood. An old school clock that you wind and then you just set the alarm. There's no technology. And so that's helped me a lot. So now I'm just reading before bed. And because I work so hard, I create so much content. There's so much going on in our business. I really need that disconnection. Whereas if I was reading the New York Times before bed, I was staying hooked into the stories, the politics, which right now are a little stressful, at least in the US. I think in the whole world, politics are stressful at the moment. And that wasn't a great way to get my best sleep. And so truly separating from your technology in like half an hour before bed has helped me a lot.
I would encourage everybody to be thoughtful about, what they do on a daily basis and why they do it. And I think that answer really comes from, again, understanding what's important to you in life, and there's no right or wrong answer. So, just be thoughtful, be self-reflective, and really determine what that is. And then if that's going for the brass ring and being an entrepreneur, or if that's working a 9-to-5 job, collecting a paycheck, but you're present on the weekends with your family and you're home at 4:00 to take your kids to practice and you never miss a recital, that's a great life as well.
I want you to think about what idea that you could share with the world that somebody in the world needs to hear right now. I don't care if it's one person. I don't care if it's 1 million people, but what is something that you could share in 12 words or less that would be of value to somebody? Because that's incredibly important. And, you're not having to get up on necessarily on a TEDx stage or at the UN to do this, but, where could you do it? And people will often, and the reason I introduce the space thing when people say, look, there's nothing and okay, cool. Let's assume you're part of the first, human staffed mission to Mars. And you're all going to come back, all 4 of you. And so people who are booking speakers could book any of you. And I'll say, great. So what is different? You got to think about what is unique. And one of them, maybe they're the only person from a particular country, or they're the only person who speaks a particular language. So that is their unique aspect of how they see it. One person might be the only person who went and was away for multiple years, that was married and had multiple children. So, that might be her unique perspective to talk about going and doing this as a mother and being away this long. So, work out, even if this is something you think, oh, everybody knows this and everybody's doing it. What is something that that would add value, that you can bring a unique perspective on?
You've got to be able to embrace in a intentional manner the things that you're afraid of. It comes down to the monster under the bed. What is a kid going to do if they feel there's a monster in the closet? You hide under the sheets, then it comes up in your dreams as nightmares. You've got to make a relationship to the things you're afraid of. And the usual resolution is that the things you're afraid of, the monsters, the terrors, the agents of fear, the demons, they don't really want to be there either. Your monsters are there to deliver a message. They're monsters because they're uncomfortable and they're out of their element. They're not necessarily trying to hurt you. They're just trying to deliver you your fears. And they'll be happy to leave if you'll accept the fear and take the responsibility for your fears.
Well, I mean, one thing I'll just reiterate it is that openness to opportunity and to definitely set goals. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but to hold, it's 38 special for those who are old enough to remember. Hold on loosely, but don't let go. So have your goals, hang on to them, but hold on loosely so that if circumstances come up and things change and you get different information than you had when you set the goal, that you can use that information and you don't feel bad about it and you don't feel guilty about switching your direction to one that's more appropriate for you in that moment.
You have to have an action bias, right? There's too much of the thought process. So the challenge is to go do it, but do something. And because if you don't have an action bias, you spend time thinking and processing, and maybe I'll do it, and maybe I'll do this, and you just put it off all the time. So there has to be a bias. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do it. Do the best you can with what you have. And then either maybe you'll profit from it, maybe you'll learn from it, but at least you did it. And it, because it creates momentum in the trajectory of where you're going. We talked about compound interest. It's 2 millimeter shifts sometimes that change the trajectory of where you're going. So it doesn't have to be these huge things. And you don't have to say, I have to get everything in place before I take action. It's like, yeah, plan it out. Think about what you want to do. But if there's some people have been putting off, and it's like, why have I been putting that off? You know what? Forget that. I'm going to go do it right now. So I would just challenge everybody to start taking action. You don't need to do everything, but take the next step towards something that you've been putting off and that you want to do, because you can do it.
Or my challenge is to try to take a deep breath when there's a feeling of overwhelm, and to sit with the uncomfortable and get comfortable with the uncomfortable, and just sit there for a moment and remember that wishing it were something else might make you feel more disconnected or more pain, and to stop and accept. And I've just found the faster I accept kind of what is, I have the ability then to go do what I need to do to make that situation better.
It's a challenge I've done myself, but it's the idea of making a choice in a moment where you would reach or react with fear and replace it with love. A simple example is I'm in traffic, someone cuts me off. Old me would honk the horn right away, maybe even pull my window down and yell a couple of words to the other person. New me, now what do? Well, I breathe in for 1 second, because I know if I react on impulse, it's going to be the honking, window down. But if I breathe in and think about, okay, let's react from a place of love. What does it mean? Well, I'm going to maybe be compassionate or empathic to the person. I don't know if that person is expecting a baby and she's rushing to the hospital. I don't know if they are, for example, sick, or their partner is sick and they're rushing to take them somewhere. Or they could be a jerk. And in that case, whatever. I mean, it's their life, not mine. But either way, it doesn't matter, because we don't know the actual reason. And it shouldn't matter.
Everybody says work-life balance. The reality is it's work-life integration. And if you're not happy doing what you're doing, or it's not rewarding for you, no amount of money is going to make that difference. And listen, you have to do what you have to do at different times, right? Do what you have to do until you can do what you love. And especially, I would imagine, being an artist or whatever, we've all done it, and there's different seasons, but make sure you're aware of what lights up your soul when you're working, And there are jobs out there. There's jobs, you don't have to create your own business to have that satisfaction either. That's a great way to do it, but there's a lot of opportunities. So don't resign and think like you're stuck, because there's so many just really cool companies out there now and really great initiatives. So there's something for everybody.
The first thing I would say is kind of what we just talked about. I would challenge people to wake up, before you even go to bed, put a empty glass next to your sink or your water spigot, whatever you got, go to bed, and then get up at least at, 30 minutes earlier than you normally do. I would just challenge people, get up 30 minutes earlier than you normally do. And then the first thing you should do is to drink that tall glass of water. And if you could do that consistently for 30 days, I would be remiss to say that your life won't begin to change. From something just as stupid and simple as waking up 30 minutes earlier and drinking a tall glass of water, with that time and with that new hydration, your brain starts to function a little bit better. And it's just interesting to see how people would roll.
So my methodology for reflection, at least on like a weekly basis, is rating the week on a 1 to 10 scale. Like if I would actually look at this, like what would I give it on a 1 to 10 scale? That scale is different for everyone, but I'd encourage people to be honest with themselves. When I first started to do this, I did it for a year and a half, and the first 52 weeks were all below a 6.
Oh, wow.
Like a 6 or below every single time. And I remember looking back on my notes and, my reflection tools and seeing some very clear trends of like why I was giving this a 6. And I was just like, okay, like I know the 3 things that I need to do to get out of this. And then I started putting together weeks and weeks in a row, months and months in a row of 9s and 10s. So what worked well? What didn't work? What did I fail at? That question. And what were the key lessons learned?
The challenge is always the morning routine. I think that's where it all starts, because you set yourself up how your day is going to go based on how you start your day. Do some internal work when you start the morning, right? Be with yourself. I don't know, maybe read, like I said, meditate, breath work, exercise, especially like do some intense exercise, like build strength, right? Before you ever get online, like really focus your mind on like what you need to do and accomplish that day or whatever it is, like, or just focus on getting your mindset right so you can handle the day, right? And when you combine that with doing breath work regularly, you retrain the stress response especially with the breath holds and the breathing techniques, you'll start to find that you're much more able to handle the endless stresses that life's going to throw at you.
I try to do this every day of my life. And it kind of goes back to the 4 truths that we were talking about a minute ago. How do you embrace pain? How do you embrace the difficulty that we all experience in life? Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So how do you deal with that pain? And here's the challenge I would offer to everybody. And I try to do this every single day of my life. Do one thing every day that scares you, that makes you nervous, that makes you uncomfortable, that's potentially embarrassing. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but if you do those small things every day, when the big disasters in life hit us, and they hit all of us, we lose somebody who's close to us, we get let go from our job, we find out we have a chronic or a terminal illness, you'll be so much more resilient to handle that pain when it presents itself. So just do one thing every day that you don't want to do that makes you scared, nervous, or uncomfortable.
Yeah, let's have that challenge for the audience, that they examine their values and see if they can choose 6 that is present to their life right now, right this moment that you and I speak. Because one thing is that values are dynamic. What was value system for me when I was 20 and now 3 decades later are not exactly the same. So why don't we use that as a challenge?
I challenge you, dear viewer, to go out into the world today and say hi to 5 strangers. And if you can, start a conversation. And I challenge you, dear viewer, to make it a habit to start a conversation with 1 stranger every day, whatever topic, for the rest of your life.
Loyalty is when you've got my back
behind my back. And so the case scenario is everybody's at the office and at the water cooler, and everybody's dishing and dragging Susie Q. I had 4 or 5 people at the water cooler, and they're just, oh, that damn Susie Q, she's this and she's that, and she said this and she did that, and you see the way she's dressed and got all of that, the way people are and the way people can be. If you were to walk up to that group and go, hey guys, I know Susie Q, and that's not the Susie Q I know. Maybe she's just having a bad day. Maybe she needs a hug. And you turn on your heel and walk away. That's a couple of different things that you've done to change that dynamic. First of all, they're probably going to hate you for it because they're going to say, who does she think she is, right? But really what it does is it kind of puts a little bit of an embarrassing note in there for them, something to rethink. This whole fostering, and festering of wanting to really be nasty towards someone. And maybe it even puts the seed that maybe they do need to go over and say something nice to Susie Q. Maybe she is having a bad day. And if it were me, I'd want somebody to be compassionate and kind to me. So, so it kind of, it puts into motion, right? A whole different way. Everybody's going to take it differently. By 4 or 5 people are going to take it all differently, right? Everybody's going to get a little something out of that. But it is really, I've got your, loyalty is when I've got your back, behind your back. And, just stop doing it, because when you gossip like that, it's your insecurities and wanting to make yourself feel better about yourself, and it just does the absolute opposite. So just don't do it. It's just nasty.
Find those new skills, learn how to basically maybe say, well, I'm not going to be a big farmer, but maybe I could augment what I do by growing a few staples on my own, right? And starting to kind of learn some of those extra skills that most of us in the city have never learned, never cared to learn, because it was always, especially here in the Western world, we've always had so much abundance on the shelves, right? We never had to worry about it.
I think if I was to put any challenge to business owners is to create 3 pieces of content that you can put on your marketing to start doing some content. We talked a lot about UGC, and I think this is the way to do it, is just start with some user-generated content, put it on your website, and think of 3 different things. So like number 1, what is your number 1 FAQ and how you can provide value to customers about questions they have about your industry. Number 2, the problem. What is the biggest problem your customers have, and how do you understand that problem and how do you uniquely solve it? And then I would go with like maybe a micro story, which is problem, solution, result, right? So the problem, the solution you provide, and then ultimately the result. So if you do those 3 and just start, and then again, to go back to what I said earlier, is traffic, right? So just creating them is hard. Posting them, not that difficult. But what's going to happen is if you just post it on, I'm just going to use Facebook as an example, you're not going to get any views, because like Facebook basically says to businesses, unless you boost this post or pay for an ad, we're only going to show it to 10% of your audience that has said that they want to see your stuff. So go, like I said earlier, get the traffic. So create the videos, post them, get the traffic by either paying for some form of advertising or boosting.
A challenge that I would like the audience to take is see if there's something that you're super, super passionate about and go create a video on it. Just talk about the thing that you love the most. Yes, it's going to be really hard at the beginning. You might not know exactly what to say, but just start riffing. Now, I didn't come up with this idea because when I was taking English composition class, my teacher told me, you just got to free write. I'm like, what do you mean free write? Like, you just got to just write anything. I'm like, but I don't know anything. Like, yes, you do. Just talk about your day, talk about anything at all, right? And that helped me to get better at writing. Just document your journey. Going from work, going from home and work, is that my journey? Or is this something that's very specific? So the more you talk about things that you're already doing, the better you're going to get at speaking to the camera. And again, the more reps you put in, the better you're going to get over time.
What is your end game? And in all the decisions that you make, think about that. What are the 3 things that you want in life? And if you're not going toward that with the decisions that you make, then and you can say no to more things, right? I have a problem. I'm trying to focus myself more on, if this isn't aligned with what I want in the end, why am I taking the time to do it? So it goes back to making more, putting more life in your days, right? Being able to enjoy your days and putting more life into it. So thinking about those values, make sure you have those in mind. Those values are just those things. What are the top things that you see yourself doing in the end, whether it be at the end of, when you're going to sell your business, or when you're going to leave a company, or what you're going to do at retirement, wherever you are in your, in that stage of life. What are those things? And start thinking about that in every decision you make, because there's so many things that pull us away from the things that really matter. And if we're working so hard all our lives and on these hamster wheels, right? Hoping that when we retire, we'll get more time with the kids. Is that really? What about more time now?
Bring it back to the breath. I know that we can do so much when we're in control of the breath, meaning that if you can do a simple box count, count to 4 as you inhale, hold your breath for 4, exhale for 4, hold your breath for 4. That box breathing will shift your awareness. And if you don't want to count, then just set the intention to lengthen through your exhalation. Because physiologically, you're tripping your neurology to slide into a parasympathetic dominance. And that's where the healing begins.
Have you got a challenge you might like to suggest for the audience?
By Jove, I believe I do. Well, yeah, I'm prepared. Everybody may as well know I've prepared this, because I know that you asked about a challenge.
Preparation is appreciated.
That's right. And I wrote quite a bit here, but I really didn't have to write it down. The challenge. See, the word challenge is kind of funky to me, because challenge connotes ambition and willfulness and all of that sort of thing. But it actually is a good word, because the way I approach it is the challenge is to meet the challenge. That's the challenge, is to meet the challenge and the challenge is the temptation I talk about, to become upset every time, just waking up in the morning, from the moment we wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed at night, it's just one thing after the other. It could be little things, it could be big things, just little upsets. It could be a mosquito buzzing around your ear, or someone, flips you the bird in the traffic situation, or whatever it is, or a politician says something stupid on TV, whatever it is, these are all temptations to become upset. So the challenge, those are challenges. Challenges against the emotional challenges. I say the challenges, every time that happens, even if you're not meditating, if you're not using non-contemplative meditation, you can do this. Practicing it makes it easier as you go along, but just watch the temptation to become upset. Watch the temptation to become emotional, and just step back from it and observe it. Don't judge it. Don't make excuses for it. Don't say, "Oh, that person, they're just having a bad day." No, don't make excuses for it. Just watch it for what it is. And after a while, you'll see it becomes second nature. And after a while, the things that upset you won't upset you so much, and the people that upset you on purpose will also lose the power that they have over you, whether it be in a relationship, or a politician, or an advertising agency. They upset, because you could be upset with negative things. You can also be upset with positive things, right? And it's the same thing with everything. Just step back and watch.
Congratulations if you've made it this far or tried any of the challenges. For the 100th, I wanted to offer one myself. The challenge I'm going to offer you guys is less is more. I'm someone who very much in the past has tended to do too much, not without good intention, but often it has done me a bit of a disservice. And I am practicing the art of less is more, trying to narrow my focus, have really quality focused time, even if that means less in the day, which is a bit counterintuitive. I did the 9 to 5 corporate thing for many years, and I just don't think it was fully productive as a human. I've really learnt in recent times, particularly with writing and again creative work, that less time that's truly focused and aligned achieves more. Not that it's about any kind of end result, it's very much about the process. But this less is more can be applied to so many things. And it even makes sense in terms of these challenges. Don't overwhelm yourself with the 100, even if you just picked one and had a go at it or it benefited you. That's awesome. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. If you like it or it's benefited you, you might consider subscribing to my channel. All the conversations can be watched or listened to in their entirety on the Superchargers Podcast, hosted by me, Daniel Thomas. All the best with whatever challenges you're facing in life, no matter how big or small they are.